Hello, everyone. This is Vikan Mikhailian, CEO of PlanGiving.com. I think we have disappointed quite a few people today because we forgot to announce that this had a limited audience. We are full by 6 times the capacity of what this webinar can hold. I'm glad you are here. We would love to hear your comments on the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. Can somebody say hello and chat with us? Feel free. We have here Jeff Comfort, who's at Oregon State University. Hello, Jeff. How are you?
Great.
Good, good, good. We also, Jeff used to be at Georgetown University for how many years, Jeff? Like 97 years or what?
Yeah, thanks, Vic. In 18 years, and before that I was at National Jewish Medical Center in Denver for 10 years.
Wow, you've been around. We also have Andrew Gray from Boca Raton, who is with Daskell Bolton. He is a CPA. Andrew, you there?
Yep, I'm here.
Okay. And I met Andrew in Fort Lauderdale, not too far from Boca Raton, when he made a great presentation to the local business chapter on how more successful nonprofits can be if they used Form 990 with the Internal Revenue Service as a marketing tool. It was great. He wrote a white paper for us. You should Google him. How Form 990 can reflect your mission, your vision, pictures, how you support organizations, and actually make it attractive by giving it to a graphic designer, as simple as it gets. But right now, this webinar deals with our new administration and what's going on there. We're trying to predict what's good and what's bad for philanthropy. So I'm going to be the quiet person here. Jeff Comfort is going to be interjecting with critical questions, and Andrew is going to be our #1 guy talking forward. And Tyler, make sure this is getting recorded.
Yes, it is recorded.
Great. Tyler is our #1 production person here in Valley Forge, Pennsylvania. Tyler, any comments? I'm sorry, not Tyler, sorry. Andrew, take the lead.
All right, sounds good. Well, welcome everyone, and thank you, Deacon, for having me on this webinar. I'm really excited to give everyone a little bit of a picture as to what taxes and philanthropy under Donald Trump are going to look like. I want to go over, I'll introduce myself just a little bit, give you an idea of my background. Here at Daskell Bolton, I am the nonprofit tax and charitable planning leader for the firm. In doing that, I mean, you can see the bullet points on your slide, but on the slides. But basically, you know, I spend time speaking to nonprofit organizations and groups like this regarding different exempt organization issues, philanthropy, unrelated business income, and otherwise. Also, I do consulting work for nonprofit organizations. That includes unrelated business income support and studies, also public support analysis, sales tax issues for nonprofits, and then of course 990 marketing, as Deacon was just speaking about. And I just got a new client recently where we're going to totally revamp the document and do some work there to make sure they're very attractive to donors who review the 990. So I really enjoyed doing all of that, and I actually have asked Deacon before to move his business from Pennsylvania to South Florida because, I don't know, we're a little bit warmer down here, so it is nice, although we have had some of you will laugh, but 60-degree nights and 50-degree nights here, and we've thought about it. We haven't done it yet, but we've thought about turning the heat on in our home. So anyway, it's nice down here. We're having a good winter season. But just to finish up my background, I'm the board chair at Nonprofits First. I'm also the treasurer of the Palm Beach Chamber Foundation. I like to do writing as well, so you see there I've done some writings mostly for the AICPA. Also, as Beacon said, done some work for his website as well. And then just quickly about the firm, we're based in Boca Raton, Florida, and I don't know if anyone knows, but we have a lot of wealth going on down here, and I actually have the South Florida Business Journal Book of Lists in front of me, and I can tell you that Boca Raton is our wealthiest zip code, and the average net worth is $2.7 million in Boca Raton, and then Palm Beach is a close second, also with an average net worth around $2.7 million. So that's pretty incredible statistics for wealth down here.
Wait a second. I thought Palm Beach was in front of Boca Raton.
Not the case. Boca Raton is actually at the top. Maybe Donald Trump's not as rich as he says he is. I don't know.
Well, that's a nice way to introduce this topic. So go on.
Anyway, so my firm has 135 employees. We're a full-service accounting firm. And then I'm just giving here a synopsis of our nonprofit organization clients. This is a small list here. Give a little shout-out to some of them who hopefully made it on the call, Office Depot Foundation, United Way, and some others. Also, we work with high net worth individuals from anywhere from $5 million in net worth to over $1 billion.
Mm-hmm.
So that's Daskell Bolton, and now we're going to talk about what we're going to talk about. So Donald Trump's tax plan.
We're going to just before you begin, I think in retrospect it was not a good idea to limit this because my office is getting inundated with like over 200 phone calls as to why they cannot get into the webinar. But there will be a recording available, so if anyone wants to tell their colleagues. Yeah, please continue. Please continue.
Sure. So Donald Trump's tax plan, we're going to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly. Also, the path of the Trump tax plan, which I think is actually one of the most critical things we're going to talk about today. Also, changes that will impact charitable deductions and charitable giving. Also, we're going to talk about what donors are thinking, and Jeff may jump in, Jeff Comfort, on those topics because he has a unique perspective there. Also, what can you as a nonprofit executive do in the meantime? So we're going to give you some solid action points to go off of. Well, let's talk first, and I promise I won't be partisan or anything like that. I'm very objective, especially as it relates to this topic, but I had to do this. The tax code is huge. It really is. You can see here in 1986, the tax code and regulations was quite small, at least in comparison, 26,000 pages. And then in 2016, we have 70,000 pages of tax law and regulations. It's just unbelievable. And so this is, I'm sort of setting you up to think, why are we talking about tax reform? Why is it actually coming about? And we can only hope that they will not increase the number of pages, but perhaps decrease the number of pages. So let's talk about Trump's tax plan, and I'm going to talk about several different items that you may think don't apply to charitable giving, but I promise you we're going to wrap it back around and we're going to talk about the different charitable giving aspects. So first of all, we're going to a simplified 3 tax brackets under the Trump plan. The maximum rate would be 33%, and they would repeal the alternative minimum tax, which, if you're not aware, is basically a tax that takes wealthy folks who have high income and ensures that they don't pay too little in tax, or at least that's what it's supposed to do. It hasn't always worked exactly as they intended, but that would be repealed. And then you have the maximum corporate tax rate would be going down to 15% from 35%. And then we have some child care and dependent care incentives that are part of the major aspects of the plan. And so that's our first piece that we're discussing. However, here's one item, and again, I promise we will talk more about its implications soon. But the tax plan will cap deductibility of all itemized expenses at $100,000 for single filers and $200,000 for married couples filing jointly. And this, in fact, causes huge problems, and even with taxpayers in high-income tax states, if they can't deduct their state income tax up past the $100,000 or $200,000, they could be greatly impacted by this particular feature. And then under the Trump plan, we have the elimination of the estate tax. And this happens to only affect very few, but as we all know, the wealth in our country is with few. So if you happen to be one of those organizations who entertains or works with some high-powered donors, this could very well affect your organization, and it could affect those who are giving to your organization. But in fact, only a few, 11,931 U.S. estate tax returns were filed in 2014. And just so you know, currently the estate tax is due for estates worth more than $5.4 million, but this would be repealed under the Trump tax plan. As a result, they're looking at replacing it with a capital gain tax, and in fact, this is used by other countries, but we all know that does not necessarily make that a good thing. But that is part of the feature of Trump's tax plan. And of course, we have a lot of unanswered questions, which I think many of you probably expected, even with coming to this webinar, that there are some unanswered questions, such as whether this would exclude businesses and family farms and what that actually means. We also have the elimination of... Sure.
A quick question for you. As an accountant, what do you think about the viability of replacing the estate tax with a capital gains tax for extremely high net worth people? Seems to me, I mean, we tried that for a few months about 5 years ago or so, and I think it was pretty messy. You know, how does somebody determine what their grandfather's Monet is, what their cost basis is if their grandfather's dead and he bought it 30 years ago?
Well, you're exactly right, Jeff. It does actually become quite problematic. I think from their perspective, from the government's perspective, they're seeing it as something that brings in a good amount of revenue, but perhaps they're not really thinking about the implications it would be to, as you said, as you alluded to, finding these cost bases that might just be, you know, totally unfounded, and so it can very well become problematic. But from a revenue perspective, I think they think that it's going to work for them, but we will certainly see what actually comes about.
Okay, thanks.
Yep, that was Jeff Comfort, by the way.
And then we have the elimination of deductions for transfers to private charity at death, which is included in Trump's plan. We're not sure what private charity is defined as under his plan. We can only assume that it would mean like a family private foundation, but we cannot be sure. And of course, not clear whether it would include donor advised funds, which are technically part of public charities. And so that could be problematic for folks who have donor advised funds and want to make those transfers. And not clear also whether an exception would exist.
Interesting.
So under Trump's tax plan, I just want to give you what were we telling our clients and how were we handling in fact, some of the 2016 tax planning that we were doing. So we asked our clients to definitely accelerate their deductions into 2016. All of that to assume that the tax rates were going down in 2017. So we're saying defer revenue to 2017 here as well. And then it's all a waiting game, and so we also have advised many of our clients to wait to make substantial estate planning decisions or making gifts until we know more about the plan, because it could be advantageous for clients to wait until we know more, and whether it would be retroactive to the beginning of 2017 or whether it would begin in 2018. All of that is still up in the air.
By the way, let me just quickly interject a second. It's critical that everyone stays until the last minute in this webinar, because number one, we will be doing 4 polls as to what everybody thinks. Number 2, we will be giving out a document which will be very, very helpful. Number 3, Jeff Comfort is sending us a few links about some comments that he's going to make. By the way, this is Viken speaking. But on another note, Jeff, I don't know if this is the right time or not for you to interject some of the issues you have had either with your school, with some donors, or another state university, a well-known state university like yours. Is this the right time to comment on it, or do you want to hold?
Well, I'll just say that we're in everybody knows this, particularly contentious political environment, and tax reform is going to be very contentious. We're going to have board members on both sides of any of the issues. We've also got other political issues fomenting here. Oregon State University has declared that we're a sanctuary university. And we also have a lot of members of our community wanting us to divest from fossil fuels. So all of that, I would say with the exception of poverty, nothing puts major gifts on hold more than uncertainty. And we've got a lot of political uncertainty. Andrew's, just laying out some of it. That's all.
Do you want to comment on how some donors have made suggestions, or do you want to keep that for later on in the webinar?
Well, for instance, we've got one donor that was working with me to make $1 million bequest commitment for one of our athletic teams. And then when our president of the university announced that we're a sanctuary university, he got in touch and said that's all on hold. He doesn't want to make a gift to a sanctuary university, and so I'm wanting to sit down and talk with him about philanthropy, of course. But a lot of the uncertainty with the very contentious political environment and the president's style is the president of the United States style is going to put a lot of gift commitments on hold.
Now, would you say that the donors are on both sides of the aisle or only on one side of the aisle?
Oh, I think definitely both sides of the aisle. If I look at the national news, we see a lot more evidence of people on one side of politics right now than on the other. But I would expect. One, Oregon's a pretty deep blue state, but even in Oregon, amongst our leadership here at the foundation and at the university, board members, high-level volunteers, I don't know all of their politics, nor should I, but I would fully expect at most charities, including this one, that there would be very passionate members on both sides of any issue.
By the way, we wrote a white paper once. It was a very good paper by Gail Union in Washington, D.C. And she said, whatever your inclinations are, bite your lips, go with what your organization's mission and vision is. And I know it's difficult during these times, but that's what we have to do.
I totally agree.
Yep.
I think it's perilous if we bring our personal politics to work.
Yep.
And to our donors and our community.
That's right. I'm sorry. I'm glad you interjected, Jeff, and maybe more on that donor later on. I'm trying to keep track of the number of emails we are receiving of the few people, not few, of the number of people who could not register. Maybe we should be repeating this. But Andrew, please continue.
Sure. Thanks, Jeff. I really appreciate your perspective on that. So you definitely see that people are in a waiting pattern. They don't know what to expect, and more so perhaps with this president than those in the past. The details just aren't there, and so because of that, we're identifying in this webinar and trying to fill the gaps, but we all know that it is still largely unknown. So I even had a client who made a significant donation to his own private foundation, in fact, in 2016, trying to get that higher value deduction before any changes. But now at this point, now that we're in 2017, things like that will most likely be at least temporarily put on hold. But more on the timing of tax reform in just a little bit. So now I want to talk about the path of Trump's tax plan, and I don't know if everyone knows the path of legislation, but it might be helpful, and I did it just for fun to take a look at your Schoolhouse Rock, always a bill, the guy was always a bill or whatever, and so that is a great place to start if you need a little refresher on where legislation starts and where it ends.
So what you're saying is, tell me, what you're saying is it's not something he can just sign and make it happen. This needs reviews and processes, correct?
That's exactly right, and that's exactly why I bring it up today, because we're going to talk more about also the House of Representatives plan for tax reform, and so I want to build on this process that takes place and talk about how this is actually going to happen or not happen. So let's look at how this actually works. So legislation has to be introduced. The committees review the legislation, and that's House Ways and Means, and then the Senate Finance Committees, and then you have legislation that could be on the floor of the House or the Senate, and they could be voting on two different pieces of legislation, or one could vote on a piece of legislation and then pass it to the other chamber. Often it'll come to a conference committee where they have a joint committee between the two houses and talk about the changes they are going to make and do some deal making, however they do that. And then the president will ultimately review the bill and then sign or veto. So that's the basic process, but let's talk about the history of tax reform. And in the PDF we're going to give you at the end of the webinar, it actually shows a graphic of this, but historically tax reform comes between June and August of a president's, after a president's inauguration. And because of that, I don't think we should expect it much sooner. And in fact, even though they talked about tax reform in the first 100 days, really panning all this out, I still believe that it's going to take some time. And so I would be more in line with this June through August time frame that it has historically been.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're talking about the timing of implementation, whether it'll go back to 2017 or 2018. And that, I actually think it will be 2017. However, in speaking with many of my colleagues, many of them actually think it might be 2018. And so you can see there's even disparity amongst the CPA community as to when this is coming. But one thing that the chairman of the AICPA has said is that tax reform is coming. And I wholeheartedly agree with that. Having the politics in place that seem to be in place, tax reform, we think, is inevitable. but it's a matter of what's it going to contain and what's it going to look like.
Yep.
Then you have this idea that sometimes, and I know this may not surprise anybody about Trump or any other politician, but sometimes we see that parts of a plan will be put into the plan for the purposes of negotiating. And what I mean by that is, some of these things we might have been talking about in Trump's tax plan, I'm not convinced, perhaps especially with charitable giving, that he may have put that in there simply to have a negotiating tool at the table. And I know that might be a sort of an out there thought, but something to consider, because this is part of the politics of passing legislation. So something to think about. And then on the flip side of that, we can also be informed by Trump's history of charitable giving. And I have an attorney friend who actually, as part of a project or something he needed to do for one of his clients, actually had to review the Trump Foundation's returns. And he was dismayed at the level of charitable giving and discouraged, of course, with respect to how the 990s were prepared and everything. And so that informed him that he didn't feel like charitable giving was important to Trump.
You know what? So let me quickly interject.
Sure.
That's an issue that has concerned me, because right now Trump has to deal with the media. Immediate priorities are whatever he thinks its immediate priorities. And that could be Iran, Israel, it could be, I don't know, university, the uprisings like yesterday at UCLA, no, Berkeley, sorry. So that might be his priorities. How important is charitable giving? And you may not be able to answer this question right now, but how important is charitable giving in any president's desk beyond Trump, including Obama, Bush, Clinton, or whoever we had in the past, or even, let's go back to Ronald Reagan. How much, and you may not know the answer to this question, but how much importance do presidents give to charitable giving? Is it a high priority item from what you know of?
Well, this is Jeff Comfort, and I for whatever reason, am remembering that Bill Clinton deducted giving away his used underwear. That's a fact.
Are you serious? Wait a second. Is that a joke? Are you serious?
No, I'm totally serious. I'm sure I could Google it and find it. At the time, it made it in the press. We all make gifts to Salvation Army or thrift shops, etc., and the Clintons did that, and it included a deduction for his underwear. But neither here nor there. Under the Obama administration, I remember being taken aback that, for instance, Tim Geithner had a pretty public position of wanting to cap the charitable deduction. So it's not something new to look at a presidential administration and question their philosophy on the social engineering behind the tax deduction for charitable gifts.
Okay, but I'm still wondering, I'm still curious, with all this stuff happening in the world today, Russia, I think a bigger issue is what Iran is in the news today for some missile that they striked. I have to listen to it again. Is charitable giving on their desk? Is this going to happen next week, next month, 5 years from now? I mean, we can only ruminate on this, but I'd love to hear both of your opinions. I personally think that the charitable world is at the bottom of their list, unfortunately, or maybe fortunately. Maybe nothing will change for us.
This is Andrew. I think I think that it's important to look at the historical context for the particular president of their own charitable giving. I think that is very telling about what's important to them. But I also, don't want to take power away from the organizations who advocate very strongly for charitable giving, because I think that that is powerful, and we'll even talk about later about some action steps that organizations and fundraisers and those who are in positions of authority can take to help in this area and make sure that it becomes important to the president.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. Hey, listen, can we take a break and do a poll real quick? Okay, you've got the next
Great.
slide there. Just leave it as it is. Tyler, are you still there?
Yes, I'm here.
Great. Why don't you do our first poll for the audience? Can you, and then show them the result? We have 30 seconds to fill up this poll.
All right, I'm going to launch it right now.
How do you feel about the future? By the way, please excuse any grammatical errors in these polls. Not this one's fine, but they limit us just like Twitter limits the number of words. How do you feel about the future of charitable giving under a Donald Trump administration? Very optimistic, somewhat neutral, somewhat pessimistic, very pessimistic. 30 seconds, please fill this out.
All right, we have 75% of people have voted. We're almost at 100.
Wow, already?
Yeah, people voted quick here.
Okay, hold on. Just give them 50 more seconds, please. By the way, many of you are clients of ours, and we truly, truly appreciate your business. I'm in Valley Forge, Pennsylvania. It is like 32 degrees here. I wish I was where Andrew is. It's probably 80 degrees where he is. And I can't wait to go out for a cup of coffee, because this webinar is very stressful for us. It's politically charged, but we love it. Okay, give us the results, please. Okay, very optimistic, somewhat pessimistic. So most fundraisers are somewhat, okay. So 60% are not happy with the situation. All right, let's continue.
Okay, so we're gonna, oops, looks like 1 second here.
By the way, we can always email everyone the results of all of these polls. We recently did a poll where, Andrew, tell me if I'm taking too much into your time, but this will take real quick.
Okay, go ahead.
Where 72% of fundraisers have a blind spot when they are dealing with a donor who has the opinions of an opposite point of view of what theirs is, 72%, and 25% of fundraisers have an issue with a donor who is significantly wealthy. Those are some interesting numbers to know. And 12% had an issue with a donor who was of a different religious affiliation. Just to keep some numbers in mind, how people feel. We also learned that 18% of donors like Belvedere martinis after work. Okay, let's leave that one out. Strike that.
That's very interesting.
That is a joke, by the way. Please continue.
Yeah. So now we're going to talk about where Trump and the House of Representatives agree on their respective tax plans. So quickly, we'll just talk about this. Lower rates for businesses and individuals, no surprise there. Estate tax should be repealed, and then some tax deductions should go away. Well, where do they disagree? Well, the House has part of their plan a border adjustment tax, which is basically where you tax imports and not exports. Trump has called this quote unquote too complicated, and so there's some disagreement there. And also, the House of Representatives has actually said they want to bust up the IRS, which sounds threatening to me, especially in my line of work. but I won't be too offended. At least if they pare down the IRS and pare down the tax code, I certainly won't be offended. And then you have exceptions for charitable and mortgage interest deductions. So the House plan, this is very important, the House plan has exceptions for charitable and mortgage interest deductions. And their belief, and this is actually written in their plan, their belief is that charitable giving is higher when the economy is doing better. And of course, it's all based on everyone's different theories, but of course they believe lower taxes, greater and better economy, and so they're talking about the growth of the economy and how that will positively impact charitable giving. So let's talk about how these changes will impact charitable giving and charitable deductions. So the Trump plan has a cap of $100,000 and $200,000 on itemized deductions. The theory is here that this could certainly reduce charitable giving. You're capping the deductions, and your deductions are only going so far. And for high net worth individuals, you could very easily get to 100 or 200,000, sometimes for just their mortgages or their state income taxes. Very easy to get to those amounts. But one thing I do want to point out is that we actually currently have reductions in charitable giving deductions. Really, it's a reduction of deductions, a reduction in deductions that are allowable. That's under the current law. And what that means is that as a percentage of income, they actually reduce. Once your income hits a certain level, they actually currently reduce. They're called the P's limitations. And what it does is they reduce the amount of deductions you can take. But it's a function of income. So I've always, even though my clients were often concerned about it, especially as it relates to charitable giving, I would tell them it's a percentage of your income. So your next dollar of charitable giving still has the same power, even though you're not allowed a certain level of deduction. So that was how we handled that. But just so you know the history, we already have reductions in charitable giving deductions, and I think my opinion is that this would not be the case if they went to the $100,000, $200,000 cap on itemized deductions, or under the House plan where they have exceptions for charity and mortgage interest. Then we have, under the Trump plan, lower tax rates. Well, the theory here is, well, it's not theory, the deductions have less value. So you save less money, you save 33 cents on the dollar, which is the top tax rate under the Trump plan, rather than 39 cents on the dollar, which is the current highest tax bracket. So the deductions have less value. Whether that reduces charitable giving is truly unknown, but I personally don't think it does.
Andrew, this is Jeff. May I make a comment, please?
Sure.
Currently, if somebody of an extreme high net worth writes us a check, and we get these for $1 million under current tax law, they may have an after-tax cost of about $500,000 for that gift. By the time they get federal, state, and maybe capital gains tax savings if they give appreciated property. Give $1 million at a cost of $500,000. Tell me if I'm reading this right. If the same person, single donor, gets capped at $100,000 and they give us $1 million, it seems to me their after-tax cost of giving is going to go up from about $500,000 to about $900,000. Am I right?
When you say 900,000, you said 900,000?
Yeah. They're only going to get to deduct 100,000 of the gift.
Right, exactly. You're exactly right under the Trump plan, yes.
Yeah, so $1 million gift, cost of giving goes from $500,000 to somewhere in the range of $900,000.
Yeah, absolutely.
By the way, I need to ask a very simple question that I receive all the time from people in my world of nonprofits and in my own local community. What is the definition of a high net individual these days? Or is that a loaded question? Some people say it's 100,000 a year. Some people say it's 250. Some people say it's 50 million a year. We
Well,
should
it's
maybe
important.
we should
Go
maybe
ahead.
do a poll. Maybe we should do a poll on this. But go on, Andrew. I would love to hear your comments.
Yeah, I think it depends on who you're talking to. So if you're talking to the IRS, they have a very small brain, if you will, to determine whether someone is high net worth or has high level of income. I think many of us know that maybe some of your high net worth donors could have smaller income, at least from a tax perspective, than someone who has a negative net worth but has a $1 million a year W-2. And so the IRS is very limited in its thinking on that. And so that's my opinion on the IRS. Jeff may have some additional comments on high net worth individuals outside of the IRS. But in my thought process, we consider high net worth at my firm it to be 5 million net worth and above.
It's funny you say that because if you look at the media, a high net worth individual is someone who's making 250 or more. And if you look at many of the friends we have in the fundraising community between husband and wives, they're making 250 or more a year. So, but they don't consider themselves high net worth individuals. Let's take a 2-second break. Tyler, you still there?
Yes, I'm here.
Second poll, please.
All right.
Please, everyone, look at the words short term because the next question is long term, okay? This is short term. Thank you. Tyler, what's the progress so far?
So 25%, going up quick. 50% already.
When we reach 90, please let me know.
80%.
Come on, everyone who's sleeping, wake up. This is not the time. By the way, plan giving is a great industry. It is a great community, and it will always be alive. And the demand for it is high.
All right, poll's been over for a minute, and we're at 88%.
All right, cut it off. Let's see the results. Okay, and there's a short term, 24%, 44%, no change in charitable giving, 30. Well, wow, the last two are quite tied. I'm surprised. Let's do the next one under the long term, please. Next survey. Next poll. What is your expectation of donors in the long term, please? And again, to all my friends, I say hello. Thank you for your business. I happen to be working from home today in near Valley Forge, and there's like 18 deers in my backyard, and it's sprinkling with snow. 18 deers. I wish I could take a picture and broadcast it.
Just to make everyone aware, we have 15 minutes left in the webinar.
Thanks, Tyler. What percent is the progress on this?
80%, 40 seconds in.
Cut it off. What's the result? Oh, almost, well, wow. Actually, I'm surprised. Some people have more confidence in the long term, but not a lot. I wonder what that purpose is. Interesting. We will tabulate these on our website at plannedgiving.com. We actually own that domain, plannedgiving.com. Okay, just quit that, and Andrew, it's yours. Keep going.
Great. So let's continue talking about the different facets of the Trump plan and how it affects charitable giving. We talked about the elimination of the estate tax. Appreciated assets donated to charity may not be accepted from the capital gains tax. And of course, that is, in my mind, a very scary thing, that could not be one of the exceptions in the elimination of the estate tax and the implementation of the capital gains tax. And then under the Trump plan, you also have this idea of impact on federal funding for nonprofits. And what I'm trying to say here is that some believe, and in speaking with some of my colleagues, some believe that federal funding will go down under the Trump administration. I don't know how many people on the call may have federal dollars coming to your organization, but that's also a consideration and something that organizations need to be considering. I know one of the organizations I'm involved with here in South Florida is Place of Hope, and they're a great foster care organization. They get a certain amount from the federal government, but they are one of the few organizations in that world to have complemented that funding to such a degree that they are not totally safe, but much safer than most from the elimination of federal funding. But that's not to say it wouldn't impact many children and the people they care for in that organization. So that's something to be on watch for as well, and I want you to be aware of. Next, under the House plan, what will these results be? So eliminating the itemized deductions with the exception of charitable giving and mortgage interest. This is a positive. This could actually have a positive impact on charitable giving, especially if they get rid of what I had talked about earlier as the P's limitations. If they get rid of the P's limitations and allow itemized deductions for charitable giving and mortgage interest only, I think this could be very positive for charitable giving because right now, like I said, the itemized deductions are reduced to some degree anyway. And my personal preference, if you're familiar with the tax form, we call it top-of-the-line deduction. I would want the charitable deduction to be top of the line, and what that does is it takes it out of the itemized deduction area of the return and basically allows it at the top of your income. So a top reduction of your income. So that would be my ideal scenario for it, but we'll see what happens. I think this could be positive. And then you have lower tax rates. Again, this is the same as under the Trump plan. The deductions have less value. And then under the House plan as well, elimination of the estate tax. This is the same. Appreciated assets donated to charity may not be accepted from the capital gains tax, and that is very concerning. Now let's talk about donors, and Jeff, of course, feel free to jump in.
This slide is very critical. Especially the first bullet. Most donors do not give solely because of tax benefits. And before my dad died, I always mentioned this 2 years ago, he always reminded me of that. But the reason I'm interrupting is so that we can do the next poll. Tyler, can you do that, please?
Yes, the fourth and final poll I'll launch now.
Okay, this poll is from, actually this is Jeff Comfort's poll, isn't it? No, I'm sorry, this one. Okay, on a scale of 1 to 5, wait a second, Tyler, this is not our final poll, is it? I think you have another one to go.
Yes,
oh, it is, okay.
There were four total polls.
Okay, great. Please fill it out. I'll read it anyhow. On a scale of 1 to 5, do you think a repeal of the estate tax will adversely impact overall charitable bequest revenue. Now, you really need to know the regulations here to answer this properly. So it should not be a knee-jerk reaction answering this question. So think about it critically before answering this question, please. Jeff, you still there?
Yeah, this is Jeff, and you know, my remembrance is in 2005, then Senator Bob Dole was ready to move forward legislation, and he had the votes to repeal the estate tax. And just before he did that, Katrina, the hurricane, hit New Orleans and was going to cost a lot of money in federal funds. And they backed away from repealing the estate tax, not wanting to take a position that many saw as benefiting the very high net worth as opposed to helping hurricane victims. And at that time, there was a lot of data on both sides of the philanthropic impact. Some data showed that charitable bequest giving would go down with the repeal of the estate tax. Other data showed that it would go up. My personal opinion is, yeah, some donors may reduce or eliminate their charitable bequest in consideration for a repeal of estate tax. Probably not many, but I would see many other high net worth donors who would have a much bigger pie to deal with, could give more to their heirs, and still have a lot more left over, and would probably increase their charitable bequest in consideration with the repeal of the estate tax.
You know, it's funny, I touched up on this topic in 1999, and many people didn't follow me, and it was only logical, and I'm not going to give the results, but I would love to revisit this in about 2 years and see if the numbers are different from reality. So, Tyler, you can keep these polls on file, correct?
Correct.
Great. Okay, let's keep going.
All right, we have about 7 minutes left in the webinar.
Okay. By the way, if this takes longer, people can stay online. We're not going to stop. Andrew, it's all yours.
Okay, yeah, I have one comment on the estate planning or the repeal of the estate tax. One of my colleagues who is an attorney and estate planning CPA was telling me that one of her concerns is that fewer people, if the estate tax really goes away, that fewer people will engage in ongoing estate planning, and how that could impact charitable giving was of concern to her, because if people just aren't thinking about, you know, what are your high net worth donors motivated by in doing their estate planning? They want to save money. And if there's less money or less to be saved, if you will, then perhaps they're not as motivated to engage in estate planning. And I know, Jeff, we hadn't talked about that off air before, but if you have comments on that, I'd be interested to hear what you think.
Well, you know what? I think, before Jeff, I think she's dead on, because I had to deal with that with my dad before he died. And it was a serious issue. And it was not easy, because a lot of older people are scared of estate planning. I'm sorry, Jeff, go on.
No, I totally agree with both of what you're saying. And below the extreme high net worth, I think we're seeing already more and more people using wills and trusts to distribute a lot of their assets, and instead are going to, you know, a lot of people's worth is in their house and going to transfer on death with that, which is now viable in many states and increasing, or simple beneficiary designations of IRAs outside of the estate, etc. And I think that's a huge topic for the planned giving world. Russell James has done some dynamite research and has some good data on that.
Actually, you know what? We did a webinar with him about a year ago, and I should call him up for another one in about a month.
Yeah.
But Andrew, this is your show. Keep going. Because
So
we have about
as we
7 minutes left.
Yeah, I think we'll wrap up timely on the 7 minutes. So donors, what are they thinking? Like we said, most donors do not give solely because of tax benefits. I might have one client who I think pretty much just gives because of tax benefits, but that is really rare. I mean, as we've already said. But donors who are motivated by tax benefits may be inclined to reduce their charitable giving. But I think in total, most donors are waiting on more information. They want to know what's happening, especially with the estate tax, and how that's going to pan out before they're engaging in some of the actionable discussions for planned giving.
This is Jeff. Yeah, I would agree most donors don't give solely because of tax benefits, but I've worked with a whole lot of donors who have given a whole lot more when I'm able to help them leverage their gift through additional tax benefits.
Okay, Jeff, you don't have to tell me at what institution, but what was the largest gift you facilitated?
I've worked on gifts up to, I think, 87 million. The largest where I was direct frontline in the execution of the gift was 30 million.
Thanks. Andrew, yep, keep going.
Sure. So what can nonprofit executives do in the meantime? And here are some of the action points I want everyone to be thinking of. Number one, educate your donors. Use newsletters or any other means you might have to let them know what's happening. Keep them up to date. It's best that, and you may know more now having been through this webinar, but utilize the resources you have. It might be plangiving.com. It might be your own plan giving council. I'm part of a plan giving council for an organization, and we do a lot of work in this area, and or an advisory board of some kind. So definitely utilize those resources, or a CPA to give a presentation or write an article about what's coming and what's going on. I think your donors want to know where things stand, and who better to get it from than you. So then we have number two here, and some organizations may not be aware that this is possible, but if you're in that position of authority, or if you have access to those who would have that position, definitely use your influence to contact local, state, and federal officials on these matters. It's not.
By the way, we have an excellent letter that anyone can request from us at success@plangiving.com that they can automatically just send to their local leaders, Democrats or Republicans, on what they feel should happen with the government regulations. So if anyone wants to email us, that letter is personally sent. It's not online. It's sent on a one-on-one individual.
So this is Jeff. I'm going to jump in and say I believe it's very dangerous for individuals in staff positions like mine to engage in those activities. I personally look to my organization's leadership for political positions. My job is to bring facts, including articles that are projecting a diminished charitable giving of 4 to 9%, et cetera, under Trump's proposed tax law changes. But if I stepped out and took a personal position, I would expect one or two of the board members where I work to contact the head of our foundation and ask, who is Jeff Comfort and who does he think he is? So I would amend item 2 to use your organization's influence and think it very carefully before you take a personal position internally or externally.
Jeff is 100% correct here, and he did not see the final letter, which we really neutralized. Jeff, I will send you a copy, which is available to all of our constituents, and I'd love to see you review that once more before we send it out, Jeff. All right?
Great, thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Jeff. That's a great perspective, and I think utilizing your leadership, as Jeff said, is really the key to getting this influence out there. I think if as organizations we did bind together to work towards getting our organizations positioned to the right people, it could have a very high impact, and it is very critical.
Yep. Beyond the organization where I work, this Jeff, I'm also looking heavily and happy to throw any weight I may have individually behind what case an organization for higher education is doing, or independent sector, or other groups like that.
All right. Let's keep going, Andrew, please. I just received this email from the webinar service threatening to end this webinar in a few minutes. And we're paying them a lot of money, and they shouldn't be doing this. But let's keep going. I doubt that they will be taking any action. Keep going, please, Andrew.
We're on our last point here. Maintain your relationships with donors, even if they are more silent or hesitant. And part of that, I think, is engaging in that education. Sharing resources with your donors as it is appropriate to do so. I think keeps that line of communication open, continuing to meet with them, regardless of their taste for additional giving. At least at this time, things could be very different once we get around to June or August or July of this year. We could know a lot more and have a good handle on what's going to happen. So anyway, do those three things as it's appropriate for you and your organization to do so. And really, I think that's all we have. Beacon, do we have any questions from anybody that we wanted to do real quick? Or
I think we have way too many questions we cannot address right now, but I think that the best advice would be what you just said. If people can keep their calm, do their job, shut off the aggravating news, which aggravates me 24/7, and my theory has been this: no president has ever affected my livelihood. So let's not worry about it. Let's just plan in a calm, cool, and collected sense. I mean, Jeff, do you have any comments on that?
No, I particularly like Andrew's third bullet in the previous slide. And it reminded me of, action to take in the Great Recession in 2009. Maintain those relationships.
I always tell people in my business, plan giving is a people business. It's not a legal business. If you love people, you'll raise more money than you can have ever imagined. And whatever president you've got, from Obama to Reagan to Clinton to Trump, if we just do our jobs right, I think everything will be fine. But there are some critical points we got to be careful about, and I hope that this webinar helped everyone. I think we should have a follow-up in August, right?
Sure. Maybe maybe sometime over the summer or whenever it's good timing. But certainly ask me any questions. I think I have my contact information up for everyone to see. If anyone has particular questions, you're welcome to email me or call me at any time.
Yep, and our general inbox is success@plangiving.com. Tyler, do you want to upload that document for everyone's download right now?
Yes, I actually just did a couple minutes ago. So anyone that's in here, if you take a look at the handouts on the right, you'll be able to download a PDF as well as a Word document that will contain a couple of links for you to check out. I did want to mention that anyone that's here via the phone, An email will be sent out that'll contain the slides, the documents, and everything for you, just so you can get all of that you weren't able to see because you were here via the phone.
Great. Thank you, everyone. We have 11 more webinars coming up this year. The next one might be on gifts of real estate. We're not sure yet, but gifts of real estate are a huge opportunity. There are a few more on bequests and estate planning. So please keep yourself aware by visiting plannedgiving.com. Thank you, everyone. We'll end this webinar right now. Tyler, please log everyone off. Thank you.